All right, is everyone ready to get this day started? Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Before we get our workshop started, I will ask if you will please silence your cell phones. And before workshop, we are going to start with a public hearing on the proposed ordinances number 2025-12 through 2025-22, golf cart and moped rental conveyance. Is there anyone here? Thank you for being here. Before we get our workshop started, I will ask if you will please silence your cell phones. And before workshop, we are going to start with a public hearing on the proposed ordinances number.
We're working.
Some of you don't want to hear me once, much less twice.
We good,
Are we
Brian?
good? Okay. All right. Is anyone here to talk about golf cart and rental mopeds? Okay, there being no one, we will close the public hearing and move on to our workshop agenda. And we have some special guests here today. We have the board president of Coast RTA, Mr. Bernie Silverman, and Mary Kate Moroccan. I hope I said that correctly, Moroccan. And she is with Kimley Horn, who is a consultant that has been hired by Coast RTA, and they are going to give us an update.
Good morning, I'm Bernie Silverman. I'm the board chair of Coast RTA. I want to apologize for Brian not being here. You can catch Brian, I think, later if you want to at the train depot, Myrtle Beach. Coast RTA has a Title VI public comment period until 12 o'clock. So you can see Brian, you can see Title VI, other people, and maybe get a cookie or brownie or something, or donut. Maybe get a donut, I hope so.
And Mr. Silverman, would you please speak into the microphone, please?
Yes.
Right here in front of you. There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
In a minute, I'm going to be introducing Mary Kate Moroccan. She is a consultant with Kimley Horn and the project manager for the organizational plan, which was really funded by Waccamaw COG. And I wanted to thank you from the board and from Coast for many, many years, probably decades, I'm sure it's decades, of support for Coast RTA. And I want to thank you also for myself. I'm a rider of Coast RTA. I took the bus here this morning from Conway. I know you know that it's a critical service for the community. And before I turn it over to Mary Kate, I want to say one more thing, that the pedestrian work that you have done at the intersection of Mr. Joe White and Highway 17 is fabulous. It's really the safest intersection that I have ever crossed, and I'm a pedestrian intersection expert. I know them, I evaluate them, and I know that's the best I've ever seen, and I appreciate that very much. And I'm going to turn it over to Mary Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Mayor, council members. My name is Mary Kate Moroccan, and I'm a transit service planner with Coast RTA, and I'm here to give an update on our Coast RTA organizational plan. So we've been working with Coast RTA for the better part of 2 years on a couple projects on the facility feasibility study as well as the transit development plan. So part of that plan is we're identifying long and short-term recommendations, identifying service gaps, potential needs across the service area, and identifying short-range and long-range implementation plan phased over 20 to 25 years. So part of that plan, quite a few pieces. We want to make sure that these service recommendations are realistic, sustainable over the course of the 25-year plan. So these are based on a financial reality and developed in coordination with a financial plan. Made possible with the passing of Ride 4, also made possible by your concerted efforts to make sure that transit was included in that. So thank you very much. Here we go, sorry. We also did a fare structure analysis to make sure that CoStar TA is also doing its part in gathering as much revenue as possible while still providing that lifeline service that is affordable to the community. Also, in coordination with the Transit Development Plan, there's a Human Service Transportation Plan component. As Bernie mentioned, GSATs, the local MPO, it's required that we develop a non-emergency medical transportation plan for special services, disabled folks, veterans, senior populations, just making sure that that's developed in coordination with the transit plan to make sure that those needs could be met through the transportation plan or separately. We've held some public meetings recently, coordinating with stakeholders, and then also completed an origin destination customer satisfaction survey this fall. So we are going to provide an update on the facility plan development and the financial plan development as well. So the origin destination customer satisfaction survey that was completed this fall, we got a lot of good results, and not surprisingly, the folks that are riding in this area are transit dependent. Most of these folks ride frequently. They are low income, and this is surprising, they are above the age of 55. Most of the ridership, I'd say upwards of 70%, are reporting that they are using this service to get to and from work. So this is absolutely a lifeline service across a very spread out region. This is a large region that CoStar TA covers, dense pockets separated by large areas of rural and low density. So these are folks that are accessing these high density tourism corridors. Those service jobs are very important. So we focused our study analysis on really gathering as much data as we could to understand how the system is currently operating and performing, what's working well, what's not, and also just getting an idea of the operating environment that Coast is working in. So we examined demographic, socioeconomic data, as well as just general travel demand across the region. So based on an average an average September Thursday in 2023, we use replica data, which I like to describe as very creepy and helpful, but it's third-party data set that kind of mines GPS-enabled device travel data. So thank you all for participating in that data set. So what it does is it makes assumptions about trips that a cell phone would take, assuming that a person is attached to the cell phone. So it makes assumptions based on the speed that that cell phone travels. We can make assumptions about whether that was a car trip or a walking trip, bike trip, bus trip, and then based on where the phone started and ended its trip, we can understand, are people traveling for work, school, shopping, recreation, those kinds of things. So when we look at data like that and then compare it to the system, something that we were able to discern is Coast is doing a pretty good job of covering those major travel flows. Obviously, there are some gaps that we'd like to cover if more funding becomes available, but for right now, Coast is operating in those major corridors where the highest demand exists. If anything, we need more service in those corridors to meet the level of demand that actually is happening on a day-to-day basis. So the recommendations that we developed are based on that. So the current demand across the system matched up with the demand that just the general population has, and assumptions that if the frequencies were more and the service was later, we would be able to better serve the community. So we also looked at, as I mentioned, demographic and socioeconomic data. So we like to locate pockets of what we call transit propensity. So where there is a high likelihood that populations would need or use transit based on factors like household income, self-identified disabled populations, racial and ethnic minorities, zero vehicle households, and then where those populations are located and located most densely, where they overlap, we have pockets of transit propensity. So in the areas, we also looked in the travel demand data, we can get down to a more granular level of travel peaks. And something that's kind of unique to this region is we don't have that typical, those two bell curves in the morning and the evening where you see that, 7 to 9 and then, 4 to 6. We do have those slight peaks in this area, but we also have a more subtle rise in the middle of the day, and then that evening demand stays pretty strong. Up until upwards of 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, which signals to us people are making trips beyond that traditional 9 to 5 office job Monday through Friday, which is not surprising for the tourism industry that supports a lot of the workforce here. So I think that's a large signal to us, as well as there's a lot of local travel. I think going into the study, we assumed everybody's going down to the Strip to work. That's not necessarily true. We're seeing a lot of localized travel within pockets around the region, which led us to development of some microtransit zones. So where folks might not be, accessing that major travel demand corridor, folks are traveling locally, we would have a CoStar TA provided flexible van or small vehicle service that would serve that demand, those local travels, within Loris or within Pawleys Island, those kinds of trips. So you can see here on the map, those pockets of pink there, that's what we would recommend for microtransit zones. So fixed route service to be supplemented with that first last mile connection of folks accessing the transit service or just trying to get to the senior center or their shopping trip or their doctor's appointment. So again, thank you very much, City of Myrtle Beach. We really appreciate you sticking to your guns and pushing that transit be included in that ride for tax. The overall, we will be receiving about 5.5% of the total revenues gathered through Ride 4, which equates to about a 25% increase in CoStar TA's budget overall. So we are working with the county to obtain that federal funding, but overall this is a huge increase, and we will be receiving our first allocation this fall in October. We are going to have to access a note and advance on some of those funds to make up some of the funding shortfalls that we've been dealing with over the past few years at CoStar TA, but we'll be caught up by the end of the year and operating without that deficit. So this is just to illustrate how much of an impact those Ride 4 funds have made to the CoStar TA operating budget. So you can see in that first column, without any introduction of Ride 4 funds, we would have had to make significant service cuts starting in this fiscal year. So July 1, there would have been a lot less service or a lot less frequent service. That middle column shows without service cuts, we'd be operating at quite a deficit, over $800,000. And that third column shows just without any service cuts, actually some improvements. There's about a $3 million swing there with a loss of $600,000 of road use fees that we will no longer be receiving because of those Ride 4 funds. But still, we're out of the red, and we are able to make service improvements, returning some of those high demand routes back to their previous frequencies and making some very necessary changes. So this is a look at our capital program. Something that you won't see here is a lot of big bus purchases. Although this is still a high priority, many of our bus fleet is beyond their useful life, according to FTA guidelines. But our main focus right now is our facility program. So getting the site acquired on Grissom Parkway for the construction of a new operations and maintenance facility, which we have done, and then focusing on getting underway with construction of the new downtown Myrtle Beach transfer center. So again, focus on facilities. We will shift our focus to those fleet upgrades once we have made some more significant progress with the construction of those initial transfer facilities and the operations and maintenance facility. Our service improvements, some of our more high demand routes that are operating along that dense urban corridor along the Strip in downtown Myrtle Beach, right now we've had to reduce those services to every 75 minutes just to maintain consistent headways and stay on schedule. We'd like to get those services back up to an hour. So those routes, routes 15, Route 7, and then Route 17, which operates in North Myrtle Beach, right now that's an every 2-hour route. That's not really going to encourage a lot of ridership. When you're operating at 2 hours, that's purely to get folks to where they absolutely have to be. We'd like to make that service more convenient, so that'll be upgraded to every 60 minutes. Other service improvements include an introductory van pool program, which there's already 4 van pools that are happening across the region. This is wildly successful. We're very excited about this program where CoStar TA helps subsidize a vehicle through enterprise rental vehicle. An employer will match up employees that live in similar areas, and they drive themselves to work. So they might not live near a fixed route, but they're still getting cars off the road by carpooling in a CoStar TA subsidized vehicle. So we're hoping to get more of these van pools started across the region and help that program grow. Also, the microtransit services that I mentioned, we're looking at getting those started. Basically, right now, the paratransit service that operates within 3/4 of a mile of fixed route service will be doing double duty. So there is some capacity within that paratransit service where pickups and drop-offs could be made within normally scheduled trips, which is now a call-in system. We could upgrade that with an app, a trip request, or folks could continue to call in. So the capital needs, as I mentioned, we're still very focused on those facility needs. So we have $70 million of facility needs right now. That sounds like a really big price tag. A lot of that is the operations and maintenance facility. The site has already been procured. That happened in December. So we're moving on from that and moving into the next stage, which is construction. But a $70 million capital program is a pretty big lift for CoStar TA, which their current capital budget is about $10 million. So managing that and getting underway is, there's a lot to do. It's much easier with the Ride 4 contributions, which have earmarked over $25 million in local matching funds so that we can pursue additional federal grants. The federal landscape is a little uncertain. We're not sure what federal funds will be available when, but whenever they are available, we do have a local match ready thanks to the Ride 4 funds. And this is a look at our current site plan for that Grissom Parkway site. We have partnered with the city of Myrtle Beach. Does this have a laser? Oh, great.
It doesn't work on the screen.
Oh, it doesn't work. Okay, that's all right. Well, that large red area there in the bottom right-hand screen, that's the emergency services. The fire station will be constructed there. That large dark blue section in the middle, that'll be the operations and maintenance facility. So buses will be maintained there. We have fueling and fare collection in the back, plenty of room for bus storage. The large aqua sections there, stormwater retention. We're also working with the city of Myrtle Beach to get those right sized to make sure that we have enough identified for that. Very essential stormwater collection, but also enough to identify space for expansion in the future and just enough space for bus storage. And then in the front left corner there, we'll have the Myrtle Beach transfer facility. So this is a 12-bay facility with indoor comfort stations for operators and customers. We're very excited. This is going to be a beautiful facility with regional connections for intercity travel as well as CoStar TA. So like I said, there's a lot to do. We've already taken control of the property, but these are some of the other tasks that we're actively working on, identifying that cash flow model. Once Ride 4 funds start coming in, we've closed that funding shortfall and we're able to move into service planning, phased implementations of those service improvements, and then going out for bid on that new facility construction. So right now we're wrapping up site plan design and preliminary design with architects, but we'll be moving into construction management after that. And as Bernie said, a plug, we do have an information session across the street at the train station if anyone's interested in learning more about our Title VI program updates or just asking questions about the facility or service improvements. Are there any questions?
Okay, I'll open it up to council for questions.
On your federal funding, are you getting any assistance from UMTA, the Urban Mass Transit Authority?
I do believe yes. So there are formula funds that help support current urban, rural, and capital improvements. Those are just ongoing annual service investments that we rely on the federal government for. As far as these additional improvements, there's a small amount that will be dedicated to the construction and development of these facilities, but it is small, which is why we're really relying on those competitive grant funds like the bus and bus facilities or the low no emission grant.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Please.
Can you talk about how many of your buses are at full capacity and if there are any discussions about utilizing more trolleys or smaller buses in the area? And this came up at a meeting that we had week before last about the housing plan. Several people brought this up.
So I'd say demand definitely fluctuates throughout the year. In the summer months, there are quite a few buses that are at max, crush loads, especially at those peak travel times shift changes. We do have a lot of third shift workers that we can get to work, but not necessarily home, just based on the service hours. So fuller in the early morning hours and in the later afternoon hours. But yes, definitely in those dense urban corridors towards the shoreline, yes, we do have quite a few buses that operate at max capacity. And we are looking at that service delivery model of microtransit that I mentioned, a more demand response type model. Those will be either vans or 22-foot cutaway vehicles so that they're more flexible. These are smaller zones, so it is efficient to serve an area like that with a van, where a fixed route bus, 35, 40-foot bus, just couldn't navigate as easily, pick up as many people. It just wouldn't be as efficient. So yes, we are looking at that model to connect folks with the transit system.
Any additional trolleys in the plan?
Not currently. I think we have some replacement trolleys identified, but still just those two trolleys for the summer.
And have there been any discussions with Greyhound about them potentially moving to the new location to consolidate?
Yes.
Services.
Yes, we definitely have at least on-street space for them to unload if they'd prefer, but we do have additional bays for them to use if they'd like to enter the facility as well. But we have been in discussion with the intercity buses.
Thank you. Sure. Does anyone have anything else? All right, thank you both for
it out. There is in the bottom right, and the left side is a larger view of the general location between White and 501. This is the design, a preliminary site layout of the design. This is a rendering of what it. First floor is about 95, 97% complete, and they're going to start working on the second floor design here in the next couple weeks. It's about 25,000 square feet, Jay? 27,000 square feet for the whole thing. You're going to have 3 bays on one side and 3 bays on the other side for a total of 6 bays. And they're working with, as Mary Kate said, Coast with the stormwater retention and other plans. And here's a site layout of the first floor. Again, it's about 97%, give or take, complete, and they'll begin working on the second floor here in the next few weeks. So we're very excited about this. They will be working with the county to subdivide it so we can get this annexed into the city, so we can then begin construction probably later probably in 2026. Sometime construction will be in. There's a lot of permitting that needs to be done with OCRM and other things as well. And that's that.
All right, thank you.
Cool.
All right, and since this is workshop, I will ask council if there are any agenda items that you want to discuss before our meeting. I'll ask the city manager, since we have all of the golf cart and rental moped, rental conveyances, those are all written as separate ordinances. If we can read those as one and vote on all of them at once, since they are the same number as last year. There are no changes to any of these.
There's no changes to them. We will consolidate them, and we can do that. Let's do that.
Okay. All right, we do have several executive session items that we're going to try to get to before the 10 o'clock meeting. The first is to discuss contractual negotiations regarding demolition of Coral Sands and to receive legal advice regarding the same. The second, to discuss contractual negotiations regarding lease of city-owned property on 9th Avenue North and potential legal action. The third, to discuss contractual negotiations concerning rental conveyance franchise and to receive legal advice regarding the same. And the fourth, to receive legal advice relating to the invocation. Is there a motion to go into executive, and we will invite Fox Simons, Will Bryan, Brian Tucker, Michelle Schumpert, Marla Bell, Patrick Lloyd, and Amy Newshafer. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
Motion made from Mr. Louder, second from Dr. Connor. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We have enough to come out. Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
So moved.
I have a motion from I'm going to take Mr. McClure first, and Mr. Chestnut as the second. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Our meeting will begin in 2 minutes.
Why is that a V? It needs to be a C.
We're on. We're on.
All right.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's city council meeting. We're happy to have you with us. We would ask you to please silence your cell phones, and at this time, if you wish, you may rise and join council for the invocation led by Councilman Chestnut this morning, as well as the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you wish, you may join City Council for a moment of silent invocation. Almighty God, we thank Thee for the blessings of life and all the blessings that we enjoy, and pray, Father, that You bless this meeting and have it to go in the way that You would have it to go. Continue to bless us as council members, that we might continue to do the things that are for the betterment of our community and for the betterment of mankind. Lord, also we pray that You would just bless some of our council members whose families are going through sickness, Miss Hatley and her mother, and Miss Connors and her mother. And Lord, we sure know that there are many others in our community. Pray that You just bless them all, and just bless them from the crown of their head to the sole of their feet. And Father, we just pray that You continue also to bless our country, to bless our state, to bless our county, and bless our city. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Yes, ma'am.
Council has had time to look at today's agenda, so I will ask if there is a motion to approve the agenda today.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Mr. Louder, second from Mr. Smith. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. May I please have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 4th, 2025?
So moved.
Motion from Dr. Connor, second from Mr. Chestnut. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the meeting minutes from February 11th, 2025.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Chestnut, second from Mr. Louder. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. And it is time for our Communications and Creative Services update. We will direct your attention to the screen, please.
Hey City Council, Erin Bowling here with your Communications and Creative Services update. The 24th Avenue North Ocean Outfall project continues moving along. The contractor is right on schedule installing two 48-inch pipes underground extending into the ocean. That section of the beach is also set to reopen to foot traffic next month. The police department now has a new dynamic duo on the K-9 team. K-9 Goose, who has been with the department for over a year, is now working with Officer Brandon Sonko. Officer Sonko previously worked on the neighborhood team and is excited to join the K-9 unit. The fire department recently ran night drills. Firefighters have been training in the dark at Station 3 to make sure they remain prepared for any situation at any time of day. Speaking of the fire department, the annual employee recognition event took place last week. Dozens of firefighters were honored at the HGTC Conference Center. Thank you to all of our hardworking first responders. Fishing here at Thunderbolt Park just got a lot better. We added more than 6,500 fish to the pond thanks to a $2,500 grant from Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's Outdoor Fund. Chapin Memorial Library held its Spill the Tea event over the weekend. 35 local authors had the chance to talk about their books. One of the authors was our very own Director of Community Engagement, Kevin Waits. Looking ahead, the Myrtle Beach Marathon takes place this Saturday. Runners will participate in the 5K, half marathon, or full marathon all throughout the city starting at 6:30. A reminder to check the road closures on the Myrtle Beach City Government Facebook page. Best of luck to all the runners. That's all for now. We hope you have a great rest of your week.
Great job, Patrick, on that finish. Okay, do we have any non-agenda items from the public?
No, Your Honor.
All righty. We will move on to today's consent agenda, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor and members of council, you have two items for your consideration today's consent agenda. First item is motion 2025-20, authorizing the city to apply for a grant in the amount of $60,000 from the United States Department of the Interior for the purpose of purchasing two slip-on tank units. There is no match. These will be used for the fire department to help assist with brush fire incidents. The second item is motion 2025-21, which is to apply for a school resource officer continuation grant for $205,717 from the South Carolina Department of Public Safety, Highway Safety and Justice Programs for the purpose of continuing the SRO program in Myrtle Beach Primary and Myrtle Beach Elementary School. There is no match for that grant either.
All right, thank you. May I please have a motion to approve today's consent agenda items?
So moved. Second.
Motion from Mr. Louder, second from Mr. Smith. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. The first item on our regular agenda is the second reading of ordinance 2025-9.
Second reading of ordinance 2025-9 to amend Article 2, Section 203, and Article 15, Section 1502L and 1502N of the Myrtle Beach Code of Ordinances, Appendix A zoning, to add a definition of cargo container and to add new subsections regulating temporary on-site cargo containers for storage.
Good morning. No changes since first reading, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Cameron, before we ask for a motion and for the benefit of the public, would you please explain what we're voting on today?
Yes,
and why
ma'am.
this is here?
So first is to add a definition for cargo containers, portable self-contained, the big boxes we see on the back of trucks or ships. In addition to that, there are some conditions that will govern temporary uses of these cargo containers for storage at both businesses and hotel accommodations. They can't be placed on site before November 1st or February 15th for our hotel accommodations, and for retail, they can't be placed on site before October 1st and must be removed by January 15th. There's conditions governing size, amount of containers per size of business or accommodation units for hotels.
All right, thank you so much. Is there a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance 2025-9?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Chestnut, second from Dr. Connor. Any discussion from council?
Cameron, this wouldn't prohibit someone from doing a, like, cargo container building, would it?
No, that would still go through the construction services department. It would have to be strapped and engineered appropriately, but this,
This is just regular containers sitting out somewhere, like in a parking lot or in a back alleyway or whatever.
strictly for storage, yeah.
And this would also apply to residential, if I have a container on my back lot.
This wouldn't cover like the use of pods necessarily when people are
I'm
moving.
talking about ocean-going container.
So you can still use those for a storage unit as long as it's properly engineered and strapped and goes through the proper permitting process with our construction services department.
Any other questions? Okay, any discussion from the public? Thank you, Cameron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. The first reading of ordinance 2025-10.
First reading of ordinance 2025-10, approving an easement between the city as grantor and Dominion Energy South Carolina, Inc. as grantee concerning property located at 2108 South Kings Highway, having PIN number 443-00000010.
All right. This is a standard easement that would be located on city-owned property at 2108 South Kings Highway, which is Fire Station number 3. As you all know, the city is in the process of constructing a new building on that property and doing some work on the existing building. Dominion Energy proposes to install a new main line to the property as well as a service line to the new building. And so this is just their standard easement, allowing them to install the line and then maintain it over time. It would be, in the location of the line, a 10-foot wide easement.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2025-10?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion from Mr. McClure, second from Mr. Louder. Any discussion from council?
This easement doesn't inhibit us from doing anything that we were planning on doing, is that correct?
Nope, this is in conjunction with what we are planning on doing on the property.
Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. First reading of ordinance 2025-11.
First reading of ordinance 2025-11, approving execution of reciprocal easement agreement.
A little background first. Pirate Land Campground operates on land that it leases from the city and land that it leases from a third party. Pirate Land's lease of the third-party property is expiring. The owner of the other side of Pirate Land will take over management of the assets on their property and will operate a new campground by the name of Carolina Shores RV Resort. Ponderosa, the local corporation that operates Pirate Land and has operated Pirate Land for decades, will continue to operate Pirate Land on the city-owned parcels. But as you can imagine, after decades of operating the Pirate Land Campground on the two parcels combined, the two parcels are intertwined. The roads, the improvements, the buildings, the amenities, they are all intertwined. There are buildings and amenities, home sites that were built throughout the two parcels, and in some cases, to get to buildings and home sites on the one parcel, you must travel through the other parcel. A good example of this is the only entrance to both parcels is through the current entrance, which is on the city property. So to get to the Carolina Shores RV Resort, you must pass over the Pirate Land entrance, which is on the city parcel. Ordinance 2025-11 would approve a reciprocal easement agreement that would allow the campers, the employees, the guests of both campgrounds to go across the roads and pathways of each campground to get to their home, to get to their office, or what have you. In some cases, there are properties that were built actually across the property line, and this easement would allow those particular properties to continue to exist. So the easement agreement before you essentially allows both campgrounds to operate as nearly as possible to the way they have in the past until they can complete the steps they are currently taking to completely separate and to be completely separate and independent campgrounds. It is a temporary easement agreement. It will expire no later than February 2025. The city undertakes no maintenance or repair obligation on either property. And in fact, the campground operators are required to indemnify and hold the city harmless if there's any litigation that arises out of the use of the easement or the operation of either campground. That is ordinance 2025-11.
And when does the easement expire?
It's no later than February, I think, 14, 2030. However, either party, either the Ponderosa, that's the private land operator, or MHC, the operator of the Carolina Shores property, either one can, if they're ready to separate, they can give the other party notice, and at that point, the other party has essentially 1 year to sort of wrap it up. But in no event will the easement exist beyond February of 2030.
I just wanted to correct you said 2025, so.
I'm sorry, it's 5 years from 2025, expiring no later than 2030.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2025-11?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Dr. Connor, second from Mr. Louder. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We have several items on our agenda for moped and golf cart franchise agreements. We are going to read all of them at once and vote on them all at once since there are no changes from last year. So I'm going to read each one and then let the manager, you want to go one by one?
Read them all,
Let's just read them all?
or I can read them all, however you want to.
Okay.
You want me-
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll read them all, as the mayor said, ordinance 2025-12 through, I think it's 2025-22. Apologize in advance for some names that are included in here. I'll do my best. And as the mayor alluded to, these are just for golf carts and mopeds only. First reading, ordinance 2025-12, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyance regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to Austin Shelley, doing business as Ajax Golf Cart Rentals located at 1307 Nature's Way, North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29582 for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 24 golf cart decals. Next one is first reading, ordinance 2025-13, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyance regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to David Stone, doing business as Go Fast Motorsports LLC, Go Fast Scooters, located at 609 South Kings Highway, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577 for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 95 golf cart decals and 20 moped decals. Next one is ordinance 2020, first reading of ordinance 2025-14, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyances regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to David Stone, doing business as Go Fast Motorsports / Save Mart Scooters, located at 412 6th Avenue North, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577 for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 34 golf cart decals and 5 moped decals. The next one is first reading of ordinance 2025-15, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyances regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to David Stone, doing business as Go Fast Motorsports / Sunshine Scooters, located at 713 North Ocean Boulevard, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577, for a period of 1 year. Agreement includes 30 golf cart decals and 5 moped decals. Next one is first reading of ordinance 2025-16, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyance regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to Derek and Barbara Haynes, doing business as Kickback Corner, LLC, Kickback Corner Golf Carts, located at 506 Yopon Drive, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577, for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 20 golf cart decals. First reading of ordinance 2025-17, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyance regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to Bayless Spivey, doing business as Salt Creek Campground, KO8 Campground, located at 613 5th Avenue South, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577, for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 50 golf cart decals. First reading of ordinance 2025-18, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyance regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinance of Myrtle Beach to Mark Cicatano, doing business as Myrtle Beach Golf Carts LLC, located at 408 3rd Avenue South, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577, for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 185 golf cart decals. Next is first reading of ordinance 2025-19, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyance relegated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to Ben Robinson, doing business as Rent Me Superstore, located at 106 North Kings Highway, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577, for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 30 golf cart decals and 10 moped decals. Next one is first reading of ordinance 2025-20, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyance regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to Ben Robinson, doing business as Rent Me Superstore 300, LLC, located at 300 South Ocean Boulevard, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577, for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 114 golf cart decals and 83 moped decals. Next one is first reading of ordinance 2025-21, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyance regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to Ben Robinson, doing business as Rent Me Superstore 1205 LLC, located at 1205 North Ocean Boulevard, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577, for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 46 golf cart decals and 37 moped decals. And finally is first reading of ordinance 2025-22, granting a franchise agreement for operation of rental business of conveyance regulated by Chapter 12, Article 5 of the Code of Ordinances of Myrtle Beach to Ari Balachi, I apologize, doing business as Zeus MB LLC, Happy Scooter, located at 311 3rd Avenue South, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 29577, for a period of 1 year. The agreement includes 50 golf cart decals and 13 moped decals.
Okay, may I please have a motion to approve ordinances 2025-12 through 2025-22?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Louder, second from Mr. Chestnut. Any discussion from council?
Yes, ma'am. In all of these agreements, this is golf carts and scooters only, no LSV, correct?
Golf carts and mopeds only, no LSVs.
Any other discussion? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Resolution 2025-5.
Resolution 2025-5, approving reciprocal access and amenity license and services agreement.
This is a corollary to the ordinance you approved earlier. But again, because Pirate Land Campground operated for so long as a single campground, there are amenities on the city-owned parcel, and there are other amenities on the third-party parcel. And now that the two parcels are going to be operated separately for a short time until the end of this year, the two campgrounds have asked they want to actually share the use of the different amenities so that their campers and their residents can continue to use the amenities that they have been using in the past. So the agreement before you essentially preserves the status quo. It expires the end of this year, December 31, 2025. Again, the city undertakes no maintenance responsibility over amenities on either parcel, and both campground operators are required to indemnify the city in the event of any litigation arising out of the use of the amenities, any injury or so forth related to the agreement.
All right, thank you, Will. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2025-5?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Smith, second from Dr. Connor. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any non-agenda items from the public?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we'll open it up for communications from council and management.
Only thing management or staff has is, again, a reminder of Saturday's marathon, trying to blast it out high and wide. There's all sorts of information on our website and other social media places for folks to figure out how they want to get around. But there's a marathon. It's going to be some inconvenience Saturday morning.
Thank you.
It'll all be cleaned up by about 2.
Yes, sir.
Anything from council? All right, I have two quick things. One, on Wednesday, March 19th, the Market Common Neighborhood Watch meeting will actually be more along the lines of a town hall meeting. And the reason for this is at last month's meeting, there were a lot of questions and concerns. And Officer James and I took notes, pretty extensive notes on everything that they brought forward. And we felt like the best way to get all of their questions and concerns answered was to have more of a town hall communication style meeting. And the city manager with department heads and staff have been meeting over the last few weeks to develop some ideas, some answers, and some things that we can do, and even some things that we cannot do and why. But it's important that we communicate all this effectively. So I hope that council will put that on your calendars to be able to attend that meeting. And then today, Mr. Tucker and Fox Simons and I will be going to Columbia for meetings with the Attorney General, as well as for a dinner with Ways and Means and other meetings with our delegation. We will be presenting our budget request for this session, which, as I think most of you know, is a $65 million request based off of last year's request and what we received last year. So we are going to continue to ask for funding from the state with our infrastructure project. And happy to talk with any of you or answer any questions about that as well. And there being nothing else, I will ask if there is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Louder, second from Dr. Connor. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.